The wind howled like a wounded animal outside the pavilion, rattling the old wooden beams and shaking the windows. I pulled my silk shawl tighter around my shoulders, but it did nothing against the biting cold that crept through every crack. My fingers were numb, my lips blue, and my teeth chattered uncontrollably. I should have been safe here, high in the mountains with Zhao Feng, but safety was a luxury he apparently had forgotten existed. He said he'd return before sunset. I whispered to myself, but the blizzard outside seemed endless. I glanced at the fire, struggling against the icy draft. Its embers glowed weakly, as if even fire itself refused to fight this winter's wrath. I moved closer, pressing my hands against the warmest spot I could find, trying not to imagine the freezing void outside. The truth cut sharper than the cold. Zhao Feng had left me. He left me here. With no heater, no SUV, no hope. My breath hitched as the memory came rushing back. "I'll be back soon, Yen. Just don't freeze," he had said with that reckless grin, the same grin that had charmed me for months. I gritted my teeth, trying to summon warmth from sheer willpower. But the snow seeped in through the cracks in the walls and under the doors. My body shook violently, and my mind began to cloud. The betrayal was more than cruel, it was bone deep. I was not just abandoned. I was irrelevant to him, a tool for his amusement, left to die in the mountains like a discarded ornament. I remembered the last thing he had done before leaving, taking the only heater and, of course, the SUV keys. "Don't overthink it," he had said, tossing me a mocking smile before heading into the snow with his friends and those party hostesses. My stomach twisted with anger and disbelief. I curled into a tight ball by the dying fire, my lashes freezing in tiny crystalline drops. And then, amidst the pain, a strange clarity emerged. My heart, once a warm vessel for him, cooled rapidly, not with despair, but with a sharp, icy focus. The warmth I had reserved for Zhao Feng was gone, killed by his negligence, his selfishness. In its place rose something unyielding, something that would survive. Hours passed, or maybe it was only minutes. Time had no meaning in the blizzard's grip. My teeth ached, my hands were numb, but I refused to give in. I whispered to the wind, "You'll remember me, Zhao Feng. I won't be the same girl who trusted you." And then I heard it, a distant, rhythmic crunch on the snow. My pulse quickened. Through the haze of cold, a figure emerged, strong and purposeful, moving against the storm with a determination that matched my newfound resolve. Bo Kai. He had always been there, a silent guardian, a shadow at the edge of my life. But never had I realized just how far he would go. His dark coat flapped in the wind, his eyes scanning the blizzard, until finally, they locked onto mine. Relief and heat surged through me in a way I hadn't felt in hours or months. "You're going to be okay," he shouted over the wind, his voice steady and grounding. "Hold on. I'm here." I wanted to collapse into him, to surrender to the warmth he radiated. But instead I nodded, gripping my shawl tighter and rising to meet the cold with him. This night would not defeat me. Not now, not ever. It was the night I became a woman of ice. Bo Kai's presence was like a lifeline thrown across a stormy sea. My fingers, nearly frozen, gripped his gloved hand as he helped me stagger toward the pavilion's doorway. The wind tried to push us back, whipping snow into our faces, but he moved with calm determination, every step sure and measured. How did you find me?" I managed to whisper, my voice barely audible over the raging blizzard. He didn't answer immediately. His dark eyes held mine, unwavering, steady. "I've been watching over you for years, Yen," he said finally. "Even when you didn't see me, I was here. You were never alone." Something inside me loosened, a tension I hadn't realized I was holding. Tears threatened, but I swallowed them. Vulnerability wouldn't save me. Not anymore. We entered the pavilion. Bo Kai immediately assessed the situation, brushing snow off the floorboards and locating the dying fire. "It's going to be a long night," he said. "But I can keep you warm." He lit what was left of the kindling with surprising ease, and the flames flickered to life. The warmth hit me like a sudden wave, and I shivered, not just from the cold, but from something deeper. Relief, safety, a sense of being seen. I sank to the floor, hugging my knees. I can't believe he would do this. Zhao Feng, he left me to die. My voice cracked, carrying a mixture of fear and anger. Bo Kai crouched beside me. He's reckless, he said calmly. But that recklessness ends tonight, for you at least. I'll make sure you're safe. I laughed bitterly, the sound sharp and icy. Safe? You don't understand. It's not just about being safe. He shattered everything I believed in. I loved him, Kai. And he threw me away like garbage. Kai, he didn't flinch at the use of his name. Instead, he leaned closer, his voice low and firm. Good. Let him break. Let him see the consequences of his actions. But first, we survive tonight. That's all that matters. The truth of his words hit me harder than the blizzard ever could. Survival. That was my first step. I wasn't the fragile, delicate Yen he once knew. That girl, she had died in the cold, abandoned by the one she loved. What remained was sharp, aware, and unyielding. I looked at Bo Kai, really looked for the first time in years. The quiet devotion, the subtle ways he had been present in my life, they weren't coincidental. And now, in the shadow of Zhao Feng's betrayal, his loyalty was the only warmth I could trust. You always were here, I said softly. Watching, waiting. Kai nodded, a small, almost imperceptible smile tugging at his lips. Always. And now, it's my turn to act. You don't have to face this alone anymore, Yen. Not ever. I swallowed hard, feeling a strange mixture of gratitude and something I hadn't admitted even to myself, a spark of attraction, tempered by trust. Then let's survive, I said, letting the words carry a new weight. Together. He extended his hand. I took it, and for the first time in hours, maybe days, I felt a thread of warmth stretch from him to me, like the first flicker of sunlight breaking through endless snow. The blizzard raged outside, indifferent to our small victory. But inside, I began to feel a fire, slow but steady, growing in my chest. This was only the beginning. Tonight, I would survive. And tomorrow, the reckoning would begin. Morning came, though it was less a sunrise and more a pale glow behind the curtain of snow. The blizzard had softened but not disappeared. The mountains were still cloaked in white, vast and unyielding. I woke to the sound of Bo Kai moving quietly around the pavilion, stoking the fire and checking the door for drafts. He looked up as I stirred, his dark eyes meeting mine with that steady intensity that always made me feel simultaneously safe and exposed. Morning, he said simply. How are you feeling? I flexed my stiff fingers and shivered, though the fire offered some relief. Cold but alive, I said. My voice carried a new edge, sharp and measured. Thanks to you, Kai. He shook his head. No thanks needed. You survived because you didn't give up. I just made sure the blizzard didn't finish what he started. I stared at the fire, letting my thoughts drift to Zhao Feng, his reckless grin, his betrayal, the casual cruelty with which he left me to freeze. Anger boiled beneath the surface, but it wasn't the raw, desperate anger of fear. No, this was something colder, sharper, precise. The warmth I had once given him was gone. In its place, ice formed, not to numb me, but to focus me. I can't let him get away with this, I said finally, my voice quiet but firm. Not after what he did. Bo Kai's expression didn't change, but I saw something flicker in his eyes. Interest, perhaps, or relief that I had taken the first step toward clarity. Then we make sure he doesn't, he said. But you need to think strategically, not emotionally. You survived a blizzard. That means you have endurance. Now we channel it. I nodded slowly. I'm not the same girl he left behind. I murmured. I want him to see what he lost. I want him to feel the consequences of his recklessness. Kai stepped closer, lowering his voice. Good. Ice can be stronger than fire if controlled. Right now, your focus and restraint are your weapons. And I'll stand by you, every step. For a moment, I simply studied him. There was loyalty there, yes, but also quiet strength, the kind that could not be broken by storms, literal or metaphorical. It was comforting, but also invigorating. I realized I didn't need anyone to rescue me. Yet with him, the impossible felt possible. "You have always been here," I said softly, almost to myself. "And now maybe I finally see what I've been missing." He didn't blush or falter. "I've never left, Yen. And now you won't have to face him or anything else alone." A strange smile tugged at my lips. For the first time in months, I felt a thrill, not of fear, not of desire, but of purpose. The cold inside me was no longer a void. It was armor, and it was fire in disguise, sharpened by betrayal. "We start small," Kai said, breaking the silence. "Document everything. Every mistake he's made. Every misstep. And when the time is right, we strike." I met his gaze and nodded. Yes, it's time Zhao Feng learned that ice doesn't forget. It only grows stronger. For the first time since that fateful blizzard, I felt in control. My fear had vanished, replaced by something unrelenting. I was no longer fragile. I was deliberate. I was unstoppable. And with Bo Kai by my side, nothing could touch me. Not the storm outside, not the storm inside, and certainly not Zhao Feng. The mountains around the pavilion remained silent witnesses. And I knew one thing with absolute certainty. The woman of ice had awoken. By the time the blizzard cleared completely, the mountains had been transformed into a glittering, white expanse. The snow reflected the sunlight like a mirror, blinding and pure, much like the clarity I now felt in my mind. Zhao Feng's careless laughter was nothing to me anymore. It was distant, irrelevant. My heart no longer fluttered for him. That warmth had died, replaced by icy focus. Bo Kai stood by the window, arms crossed, scanning the forested slopes below. "He won't expect you like this," he said, his voice calm but edged with determination. "You've changed, Yen. You're sharper now. He'll never see it coming." I met his gaze, feeling a thrill run through me. I don't want him to see me coming. I want him to feel it, to know exactly what he's lost. I paced the room slowly, letting my thoughts align like the pieces of a delicate chessboard. We need evidence. Proof of everything, his negligence, his recklessness, his betrayals. Not just to humiliate him, but to destroy the trust he's built on arrogance and wealth. Kai nodded. "I've already begun. While you were unavailable, I documented his embezzlements, his reckless parties, the way he uses people like pawns. By the time we act, there won't be a single corner of his world that can hide his truth." I exhaled slowly, letting the weight of his words sink in. "You've always been here, haven't you? Watching, protecting, making sure I was safe." My voice softened. "And I never noticed." He shrugged, but there was warmth behind his dark eyes. "I didn't expect you to. I never asked for recognition. Just survival. Now, though, you'll take the lead, and I'll follow." I felt a surge of something unfamiliar, but welcome. Control. For the first time, I understood the power of restraint and strategy. The woman of ice wasn't cold out of fear. She was sharp, precise, and unyielding. She could wait, she could watch, and when the time was right, she could strike. "What's the first step?" I asked, my tone steady, almost dangerous in its clarity. Kai moved closer, his voice low, intense. "We gather him in one place. Make him underestimate you. Make him believe everything is normal. Then, when he's careless, we expose him." I nodded slowly, feeling the edges of my resolve harden. "I won't rush. Patience is a weapon he won't anticipate." Kai's hand brushed briefly against mine as he handed me a folder of documents he'd compiled. "Everything you need. And remember, you don't have to do it alone. I'm with you." I held the folder tightly, feeling the weight of my new reality settle on my shoulders. I'm done being fragile. I'm done letting him decide my worth. Zhao Feng's recklessness took away my warmth, but it gave me something stronger in return: control. Focus. Ice that doesn't melt. Kai gave a small, approving nod. "Good. And one day soon he'll see exactly how dangerous that ice can be. Not just to him, but to everyone who underestimated you. I allowed myself a small, almost imperceptible smile. For the first time in months, I felt alive, not weak, not broken, but sharp, purposeful, and untouchable. Zhao Feng had made one fatal mistake, underestimating the woman he thought he could leave behind. And with Bo Kai at my side, the reckoning was inevitable. The snow outside sparkled in the morning light, serene and beautiful. But beneath that beauty, I felt the undercurrent of something lethal, my own resolve. He wouldn't see it coming. And when he did, it would be too late. The city below was alive with the usual chaos, completely oblivious to the storm I had survived in the mountains, or the storm I was about to unleash. Zhao Feng's arrogance was predictable. He thrived on spectacle, on attention, on the illusion that the world revolved around him. That was his weakness, and I intended to exploit it. Bo Kai walked beside me as we entered the estate's grand hall. His presence was steady, almost a shield. "Remember," he said quietly, "he'll underestimate you. That's our advantage. Play calm, indifferent, untouchable." I nodded, letting the words sink in. Indifferent. Sharp. Ice that cuts. The mantra felt natural on my tongue now, more a part of me than my own name. As expected, Zhao Feng was at the center of the room, surrounded by friends and party hostesses, laughing loudly, his signature reckless grin plastered across his face. The sight used to make my stomach twist. Now it only fueled the cold precision in my chest. "Yen," he called, spotting me. His voice was casual, playful, as if he had done nothing wrong. "Finally decided to join the living?" I tilted my head, letting the hint of ice slip into my smile. "I was busy. The mountains keep you occupied in ways the city cannot." He laughed, the sound sharp and unaware. "Busy? I should have known. Always so delicate, so proper. You survived the cold without me? Impressive." I let the praise linger, meaningless and hollow. I had survived, yes, but not because of him. "I manage," I said softly, letting my gaze drift across the room, calculating. Every movement, every laugh, every careless glance of his associates became data in my mind, pieces of a puzzle. Bo Kai stepped closer, his presence a quiet anchor. "Remember the plan," he murmured. "We don't act yet. We watch." I nodded again, this time to him. I felt his hand brush mine lightly, not a touch of romance, not yet, but a promise. Protection. Loyalty. Something solid in a world where Zhao Feng had made promises he didn't keep. As the evening progressed, Zhao Feng's arrogance only grew. He made careless jokes about wealth, about his control over the family trust, about how everything he touched seemed untouchable. I smiled politely, all the while recording every detail in my mind and in the discreet notes Bo Kai had prepared for me. "Still warm from the mountains?" he asked casually at one point, sidling closer to me with a grin. I let the smallest, sharpest smile cross my lips. "Colder than you think," I replied, letting the words carry a double meaning he could never guess. "And colder than I ever will be again for you." He raised an eyebrow but said nothing, which in itself was a sign he understood. He had always understood in ways Zhao Feng never could. By the night's end, Zhao Feng was winding down, slightly drunk, slightly careless. His friends were laughing, his attention scattered. And I, standing beside Bo Kai, felt the first real taste of control. Ice that didn't melt. A plan moving forward. "Tomorrow," I whispered to Kai as we watched Zhao Feng stumble away from our line of sight, "we begin the next phase. He won't know what's coming." Kai nodded, dark eyes steady. "And I'll be right there. Always." For the first time in months, I felt warm, not from fear, not from desire, but from certainty. I was no longer his fragile, abandoned girl. I was a woman of ice. And soon, Zhao Feng would learn just how lethal ice could be. Zhao Feng had always prided himself on being untouchable. He believed wealth, charm, and recklessness could shield him from any consequences. Watching him now, I felt a chill of satisfaction. His confidence was slipping, slowly, imperceptibly, but enough that the cracks were beginning to show. Bo Kai and I had worked quietly, meticulously, documenting every indiscretion, every misstep, every instance of his negligence. The more evidence we gathered, the more my icy resolve hardened. Zhao Feng had thought abandoning me in the mountains was his greatest gamble, but the real game had only just begun. "Look at him," I murmured, my eyes scanning the room as Zhao Feng laughed at a poorly told joke. So sure of himself. So oblivious. Kai glanced over, his expression unreadable but supportive. "He's careless. And the higher the fall, the harder it hits. That's why patience is key. One misstep, and it all comes crashing down." I smiled faintly, letting the cold precision settle over me. Then we wait. And when he falters, we strike. Days passed in a careful rhythm. Every gathering, every social event became a stage, a trap. Zhao Feng's arrogance made him predictable, his laughter too loud, his boasts too blatant. He began leaving small clues behind, evidence of embezzlement, mismanaged funds, careless deals. Bo Kai and I collected everything discreetly, our teamwork seamless, almost instinctive. One evening, as Zhao Feng recounted a lavish party to a group of friends, I leaned closer to Kai. "He's getting sloppy," I whispered. "See how he exaggerates? He's confident, but sloppy. It's beautiful in a way." Kai's dark eyes met mine, and I could see the same thrill mirrored there. "Patience, Yen. Soon, it won't be just beautiful, it will be inevitable." I nodded, letting the calm calculation take over. The warmth I had once wasted on Zhao Feng was gone. Now, every thought, every glance, every measured smile was focused on control, on precision, on the inevitable downfall of the man who had left me to freeze in the mountains. And yet, amidst the cold strategy, I felt something entirely new: comfort. Security. Bo Kai was more than my ally. He was the constant warmth beside me, the steady presence that balanced my icy resolve. It wasn't passion, not yet, it was steadiness. Trust. The knowledge that, no matter what happened, he would be there. The final misstep came faster than expected. Zhao Feng had grown careless, sending a wire transfer late at night, bragging to a friend about diverting funds from the family trust. We had it all: documents, witness accounts, photographs. Everything we needed to ensure his undoing. Kai watched me closely as we prepared the files. "Are you ready?" he asked. I inhaled deeply, feeling the familiar thrill of purpose. "I've been ready since the mountains," I said, letting the ice in my chest solidify into unyielding determination. "Now we finish this." He placed a hand lightly on my shoulder, a grounding presence. Together. I met his eyes, and in that moment, I realized something profound. The woman of ice was no longer alone. And the man who had betrayed me would soon learn that ice, once forged, could not be melted, not by charm, not by wealth, and certainly not by arrogance. Tomorrow, Zhao Feng's world would start to crumble. And for the first time in a long time, I felt the warmth of justice rising, like a hearth in the center of my icy heart. The morning air was crisp, biting, but nothing compared to the chill that ran down Zhao Feng's spine when he first realized something was wrong. I watched from the safety of my office, Bo Kai beside me, as his world began to unravel, not with fire or fury, but with ice, the quiet, unyielding kind that I had become. He arrived at the family estate, all charm and arrogance, unaware that every document, every photograph, every witness account we had meticulously gathered was about to shatter the carefully constructed illusion of his untouchability.
"Yen,
"What is all this?" he demanded, his voice a mix of incredulity and panic as he was handed the folder containing undeniable evidence of embezzlement, negligence, and reckless mismanagement. I met his gaze steadily, letting the coldness in my eyes speak volumes. "This is what happens when you leave someone to freeze in the mountains," I said softly, my voice deceptively calm. "When you betray trust, when you think wealth and charm can protect you, you eventually face the consequences." His face paled, the color draining as he flipped through the files. This isn't possible." It's all wrong. I shook my head slowly.
No, Zhao Feng.
It's all very real. You were reckless. You were selfish. You abandoned me when I needed you most. And now, the world sees what you truly are. Bo Kai stepped forward, his presence firm and unwavering. The evidence is clear. Your mismanagement and embezzlement are documented. You've not only lost trust, you've lost everything your arrogance claimed you deserved. Zhao Feng's hands shook as he slammed the folder shut, disbelief etched into every line of his face. I can't. I allowed myself the faintest, sharpest smile, letting the satisfaction of justice settle like a fire in my chest. You underestimated me, Zhao Feng. You underestimated loyalty, strategy, and endurance. Ice doesn't forget. Ice doesn't forgive recklessness. And ice always wins. He staggered back, speechless, as state officials arrived to oversee the legal proceedings. His wealth and influence crumbled under the weight of documented truth. Friends and allies turned away, embarrassed by association. The empire he had thought untouchable was dismantled quietly, methodically, without spectacle, exactly as I had planned. Bo Kai's hand brushed mine, a grounding touch amidst the storm of triumph. You did this, he said quietly. Every step, every decision. You were unstoppable. I allowed a small, genuine smile to touch my lips, feeling the warmth of victory seep into the ice that had been my constant companion. I didn't just survive, I whispered. I became something stronger. And now he's finally paying for everything. Zhao Feng's eyes met mine one last time, filled with disbelief and a hint of fear. Yen, I turned away, letting the words hang unfinished. There was nothing left to say. The reckoning was complete. Outside, the wind whispered through the estate gardens, carrying the faint scent of snow and cold air. And inside, I felt a warmth unlike anything I had experienced before, a hearth that had been patiently waiting for me, in the form of the man who had never left my side, who had quietly protected me, who had helped me become the woman I was now. Bo Kai squeezed my hand gently. Ready to come home? He asked. I met his eyes, and for the first time in a long while, I felt safe in more than just body. I felt safe in heart and soul. Yes, I said softly. Let's go home. And for the first time since the blizzard, I allowed myself to melt, not completely, but enough to feel warmth, love, and hope. The ice remained, sharp and unyielding, but it no longer isolated me. I had survived. I had conquered. And I had finally found my hearth. The estate was quiet, bathed in the soft glow of late afternoon sunlight. Zhao Feng was gone, disinherited, disgraced, a shadow of the man who had once held my heart in his reckless hands. The chapter of betrayal was closed, and for the first time in years, I could breathe freely. Bo Kai stood beside me, his presence steady, warm, and grounding. We had been through storms together, literal and metaphorical, and every trial had drawn us closer, each silent glance, each shared plan, binding us in a way I hadn't anticipated, but now could not imagine life without. You seem different, he said softly, watching me as I traced the rim of my teacup. Stronger, calmer, but still sharp like ice. I smiled, letting the small warmth of the moment seep in. I've survived blizzards, Kai. Betrayal, arrogance. I've learned that strength doesn't always roar. Sometimes it glows quietly like this fire. He leaned closer, resting a hand on mine, and I felt the warmth of his touch spread, gentle but certain. You've always had that strength, he said. I just got the privilege of seeing it fully awaken. I laughed softly, the sound mingling with the faint crackle of the hearth. Privilege, huh? Well, you earned it. Watching over me, protecting me, never leaving. I think you've been my constant warmth all along. Kai's eyes softened, and for a moment, the weight of everything, the blizzard, Zhao Feng, the betrayal, the long nights of planning, lifted. And now it's my turn, he said, voice low but steady. No storms, no betrayals. Just us. You And me. The simplicity of it struck me. No scheming, no vengeance, no icy armor needed. Just warmth. Just trust. I realized then that ice and fire could coexist. Sharp clarity and steady warmth. Control and passion.
I
want that. I whispered, my chest loosening in a way it hadn't in years. I want this.
Us.
Kai smiled, and it wasn't the quiet, protective smile anymore. It was something lighter, freer, full of the promise of shared days and safe nights. Then we make it ours, he said. Every day. Starting now. I leaned into him, letting the heat of his presence melt the last stubborn pieces of ice that lingered from the past. The blizzard that had once threatened to consume me had been replaced by calm, sunlight, and the steady rhythm of someone who loved me without pretense. For the first time in my life, I felt completely seen. Not as fragile, delicate Su Yen, the tea master who had trusted the wrong man, but as a woman of ice and fire, resilient, focused, and finally loved for exactly who she was. I raised my teacup, smiling at Kai. To new beginnings, I said. He mirrored me, lifting his cup. To us, he replied, and his eyes held the warmth of home, of hearth, of a love forged not in convenience, but in loyalty, courage, and quiet devotion. As we sipped, I realized that the past, the blizzard, Zhao Feng's betrayal, the icy nights, was a chapter, not the whole story. The rest of my life would be warm, steady, and filled with love, side by side with the man who had always been there, quietly waiting for me to awaken. And finally I was home.